Autumn is descending on a lonely corner of Wyoming's Shoshone Range. In this high plateau country lie the headwaters of the longest free-flowing river in the continental U.S. It begins as trickles upon 12,161-foot Younts Peak. Gravity funnels rain, ice thaw, and snowmelt into mountain folds, leading to a small stream, crossable in one step. The wild Yellowstone River has begun its 670-mile journey to the Missouri. As it grows, it will pass through the most remote country in the lower 48. Altitude hastens the seasonal change. Winter seems to whisper its presence in spite of fall. However, it is still months away, and morning frost loses the battle with each rising sun. Plants and animals will soak in this warmth for only a short time longer. Many raptors, such as this northern harrier, may already be migrating south, but for this bird, hunting is still the overriding instinct. It is an impulse shared by humans as well. Here in the tranquil Thoroughfare Valley, a controversy is brewing. Its notoriety among elk hunters has made this area an increasingly popular destination. As outfitting trips expand to meet the demand, some feel prudence is being replaced by expediency.
The current status of outfitting camps is that they're so expensive, and they've been allowed to be transferred to the buyer of the present outfitter's choice, that the price continues to go up into the hundreds of thousands of dollars now. And as a result of that, there's huge pressure on the individual outfitters to maximize the number of hunters and the number of big game animals that they take. It's all turned into a big business.
What they used to have is maybe 12, 15 hunters per camp in that 6 to 7 week period of time. And now some of those camps are up to 85, 95 hunters. And so it's put a lot more pressure on the line, a lot more people, wanting their elk. And so they're trying to draw elk out of the park. Salt is a real drawing card for these animals. It is a dessert form, and so they are drawn to it. Some of the outfitters are putting salt out for bighorn sheep. Bighorn sheep are a lot more susceptible to salting, and they'll go clear out of the mountains to go down the lowlands to get that salt. People say it was, game and fish put it out in the 30s and the 40s. It may have been a little bit. But once it started getting more hunters into the camps, most all those licks have been started since I've been there. Salt hunting is basically game farm hunting with invisible fences. It's hard for an outfitter to keep respect for their clients. When you're shooting elk like that, then it's hard to have respect for the animal that you are hunting. As it's changed the last 15 years or so, and you got more into the ethical huntings like they talk about in Bugle magazine, then more and more hunters don't want to get an elk underneath those kind of conditions. So what the outfitters have done is reverted to putting loose mineral salt out there. And of course that soaks into the ground right away and you can't see it. You're left with big holes, maybe 4 feet deep and 50, 100 feet wide diameter, and because they're eating the soil. And so there maybe be explained to those hunters as their natural licks, but of course they're unnatural. When there's 12 to 15 hunters and they were getting a 30% kill rate, then there weren't that many animals, and they could bring those animals out and they'd do what they call full quartering, and they'd bring basically all the meat, the hide, and the bones, they bring most of that out. But now with all the hunters, these horses are getting used a lot more, so they're having to travel a long ways. Most of the outfitters have reverted to what they call quick quartering. It's where they don't even gut the animal, they just pop the joints at the quarters, and then they'll take the back strap. Some of the game wardens were concerned that they thought that was a waste of meat, but I guess the emphasis higher up in the state was to harvest animals, and so it's pretty much gone now, so that you may have 20 to 30,000 pounds of actual meat carcass available there in maybe a 6 by 25 mile area right outside the park. And so lots of bears are coming out of the park, and of course that means that they're associating meat with humans, so they don't have the fear of them. You know, you start seeing the bear tracks coming out, and they'll make a beeline. You know, they won't stop. You know, they'll go from like Yellowstone Lake and come 20 some miles back into the thoroughfare. And I see more tracks going into the thoroughfare than what I see along Yellowstone Lake, you know, during the spawning season. And it isn't just hunting down there. You know, you got Yellowstone Park, you know, the boundary trails that are right along the side. We have campsites that are right on that boundary. So people come in there, backpackers, horse parties, and they'll put up a tent, and they don't know there's a big old elk carcass 50 yards away in the willows that the bears are on. So we got to get a policy where those animals have to be, all that meat has to be taken out. And they have to take the meat out before you start taking the trophy heads out. And you have Forest Service, they're in charge of the grizzly bear. They're supposed to come up with a plan. And so they can act laws. They can say, we need to do the same thing as summertime when you put the candy bars up 10 feet. They can say, we need to get those carcasses out of there. And they can put that as a law. They can close down hunting right around those salts. They can say no more hunting within a quarter mile of every one of those known salts. And so the initiative to put these illegal salts out isn't there because you can't hunt anywhere near them.
Jackson and some of the managers and we are, as conservationists, are concerned that grizzly bears and wolves are being drawn into a conflict situation with hunters. And one of the things that we've tracked now as a result of this concern is the number of grizzly bear mortalities that are adjacent to these salt sites just outside of Yellowstone National Park. Right here, the blue dots represent a very high concentration of mortalities at the southeast corner in the thoroughfare just outside of the park, all the way over here to Fox Park. We don't know that that's related to the salt sites, but it's definitely related to hunting. And if hunters are killing bears in self-defense, as a claim, they're going to be doing it in these kind of situations where they're drawing the bears into an inevitable conflict that they would have to claim self-defense. And so we'd like to see the salt sites cleaned up and see if that would reduce the grizzly bear mortalities, as well as clean up the ethics of hunters in the thoroughfare and all of Greater Yellowstone ecosystem.
The Trident, Mountain Creek, Turret Mountain, Table Mountain. The Yellowstone greets these striking landmarks in its new man-made location, Yellowstone National Park. At the base of Coulter Peak, the river widens and meanders, blending into a 3-mile wide marsh delta. The season's sparse rainfall is evident in the muddy flats, normally lush with water and plants. Here, in this distant corner of the park, river and lake converge in quiet isolation. Yellowstone Lake. Depths up to 400 feet. Average temperature 41 degrees. 110 miles of shoreline. At almost 8,000 feet, it is one of America's largest high-elevation lakes and one of its most beautiful. Evidence of geothermal activity can be seen billowing from surrounding mountains, as well as dancing along the lake's edge. Filling the depression of an ancient volcanic caldera, the lake sleeps, for now. Unlike its entry into the lake, The river's exit is witnessed by millions as it passes silently under Fishing Bridge. Until 1974, fishermen stood elbow to elbow along the span. Since then, the waters have been protected as spawning ground for the threatened cutthroat trout. Shortly thereafter, Lahardy Rapids spring to life. Fish aren't the only residents which thrive under this swift current, evidenced by this dipper bird. Around the bend, the expanse of Hayden Valley unfolds. Bison frequent this area for its extensive grasslands. As the season draws to a close, these animals are feeding constantly. Winter can be especially severe here, and it is certain that summer coats will not be the only casualties. Quickening waters signal a change in the landscape. The Canyon Falls area is perhaps the Yellowstone at its most spectacular and dramatic. At this time of year, over 5,000 gallons per second plummet over upper and lower falls. At the base of these grand cascades, the river continues to carve the 20-mile-long Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone, which lies at the heart of the park. As the weeks pass, a veil of icy clouds comes to dominate the sky. Early snows signal an irreversible trend. Soon, even Tower Falls are locked in place until spring. The bright blue water has turned a steely gray. Winter has come to the Yellowstone. Winter is neither cruel nor friendly to creatures along the river. It simply is. Survival hinges on making adjustments. If a bird or animal cannot make the necessary changes, they will perish. Not all of Yellowstone's inhabitants suffer in the winter. Actually, one species thrives amidst this snow-covered world, the wolf.
Currently, the Yellowstone River region, both inside and outside the park, have wolfpack territories all along the river. It seems that most of the area within the park and along the river have become occupied by wolves. That territories have been claimed by certain packs and their residents there. And because we exterminated the wolf around the late 1920s purposefully, thinking that predators were bad, we had to go through a lot of changes as a society in our philosophy about predators. But certainly there's a lot of people in the United States that support the wolf being back in Yellowstone, and we're starting to see those people show up in Yellowstone to actually see them. The popularity of the animals has really skyrocketed, and I think we're looking at a bit of an economic boom. I believe I've seen quite dramatic increases in visitation, at least during the shoulder seasons, spring and fall, when perhaps a lot of visitors used to not come to Yellowstone because of the harder weather. They're coming now because it's a good time to watch wolves and other wildlife.
Last night we saw 9 wolves on a bison at once, and took it down, and it was like, primordial time.